The other aspect of it is that people don't want to see their own flaws, and they want to believe that they're good people and that they're the right people and that they've done everything that they need to. That's honestly not realistic, right? There's always another aspect to you, right? It's the red car syndrome, the yellow car syndrome. Sometimes your focus is off. When you buy a red car, I don't know if everybody knows what it is. When you buy a red car, all of a sudden you start to notice all of the red cars on the road, right? And I think that that's where voices like Marcus and when Trigger Mike's not being the gender war general are really important. Is like you provide that focal point for men to focus on, right? There are so many examples of what's not working. This space is littered with them. There's so many of them, and it just allows for people, even if they're trying to focus on the red car, it's just yellow car after yellow car after yellow car. We need more red cars out there for people to be able to focus on in order to shift their reality, right? Nice guys are not always nice. Good women are not always good women, right? There's your self-perception does not determine your outcome. How society sees you is really what determines your outcome. Your ability to be delusional in a world that tells you how to look is what determines your outcome, right? I've and it's frustrating because that's why it seems like all of these quote unquote bad people win. They're so focused on their goal that they're not letting anything distract them from it. But the good people will sit there and like very like passively allow opportunities to fly them by, whether it's opportunities for growth or opportunities for their person, right? You let people, because I'm a good person and I deserve it. No, you also have to go after it. I don't know any religion that exempts any person from doing the work in order to receive blessings. You got to put in the work. Sometimes that means towards yourself, and sometimes that means it's outwardly. I don't ascribe at all to the notion of like good people are not getting the results they want. They're doing something wrong. It really is that simple the majority of the time. The exceptions to the rule in that are so minute that like they're almost not worth talking about. You're doing something wrong. There's something in your process that's broken, and the fact that you refuse to acknowledge it is what's keeping you from the results that you want. But if you're open to listening and open to being critical of yourself and you're open to adjusting and being uncomfortable, I think the majority of people would get what they want as long as they focus.
And
Let me
to
just
add
say
on
this.
to that,
Say this
hold
real
on. And
fast. Y'all, let me just say this. It's 2 seconds. I just saw on Instagram what a dude who didn't even have a damn jaw. Like his entire jaw was gone. He was with a chick. I seen a dude who got a chick and this dude can't be over 2 feet. Like, come on now.
So let me say this just to put a because I actually agree with that, and that is another point I want to make to black men, especially. You might have to do the thing that you don't want to do, and that's go elsewhere. If we talk a lot about men dating out and doing that type of stuff, but when it really comes down to it, most black men, just like most men in general, do not see themselves with any other woman. And matter of fact, they're afraid and they don't like the way that picture looks with any other woman. Yes, they because you'll see they'll date out, but they don't really marry out is that much either. So you might have to look at you're not what do you call it? You're not indebted to anyone within your certain group, right? So some hood dudes feel like they gotta have a baby by Keisha. No, you can step outside of your comfort zone to get somebody who's a bit more pleasant, somebody you feel like will that you can contend with, that will work with you in the household. You don't have to get a ghetto girl because your mama was ghetto. And I see a lot of dudes struggling with that to feel like they owe something to the hood. With like, she been down with me this whole time. That's my girl. No, you might have to do that one thing you don't want to do to get the results that you.
And let me
And
just
I
say this
think
real fast, real fast. First of all, there are plenty pleasant black women. You don't have to date out to find a pleasant black woman. There are plenty of them. You just overlook them. Second of all, don't tell Pookie to go and get a good woman and then he bring her to the ghetto. Stop doing that. Third of all, people
Did I
attract what
say
they
any of
are.
that?
People are attract what they are. Third, y'all gotta stop like this whole thing. You're right. You should date what works for you. That whole thing about, oh, go get enough, knock yourself out. And women should do the same. People, this whole thing like, oh, like if you find a woman who is Asian and she works for you, get that Asian woman. If she finds a white man that's good for her, get that white. Do what works for you, not for everybody else. Do what works for you. End of discussion.
So look,
hold
on. Let me just say this real quick.
Though, Shane.
Let me just say this
not
real
true?
quick.
I'll explain. Go, Marcus, go ahead.
So I know a lot of times people be like, you don't want to acknowledge the negative women and all of this stuff. They literally don't exist as dating options in my mind. When I see these women acting in a way, I will ignore them. I'm not engaging with them long enough to figure out, like, this girl out here yelling and screaming in her phone. I'm not gonna try and holler at her after that. If you showing me signs that you will not be the type of woman I want to date, you don't exist as far as I'm concerned. Like, you are not a dateable person. I'm only focusing on, and that woman might be like, there are no good men out here, right? What she don't realize is it was men in line that ignored her ass because they seen how she was acting. Men might be doing the same thing and don't realize your energy is transferable. If you walk around upset, you don't get people who are in a good space that gravitate towards you. You will only get people who can resonate with that frequency gravitating towards you. If you, like, people be like, oh, you always, I know one thing, I stay positive. That's what the type of people that's gonna come into my life will be. If I focus solely on the bad in the world, it's gonna start to manifest itself around me. And I'm telling you, this is how this thing works.
All right.
Let me
respond to Shan real quick.
When I had pink eye and stuff, you know, I was in a messed up place, right? The only thing I kept saying is, I could be blind. I could have lost my sight. My kidney could be failing. I found so many different things that could have been worse to make me feel better about the situation, and then I powered through it. Am I lying about this?
But you would have eventually healed on your own. You did not.
Let me respond to Shan when she said
for you to get better.
So I'm actually going to do a short pretty soon, because that is some advice that we have been given so loosely in out to the world, which is do what works for you. That's the worst advice anybody could ever give now. Because
what's that?
Do not do what works for you. Do what works. People don't know what's good for them. I'm sorry. That is really what is starting to ring true. People do not know what's good for them. The second people start choosing for themselves and outside of the bounds of what their elders did and what has traditionally been done, we completely destroyed society. Don't do what works for you. Do what works. All right. What works for you is a fat ass. That's what worked for me back in the day. What worked for me was some big titties. Like, that's all I would see. Right. But then I would have to square up with my dad. And I told you, he'd see me out with the girl and be like, cancel that. No.
That's that noise with Mike Tyson was talking about, that discipline. What
works is a pleasant woman. You see what I'm saying? My dad would explain things to me always with like, as if I was very short-sighted, and he helped me develop foresight to say, okay, Mike, okay, and let me just say to y'all, how long is sex? I'm sorry, good. I can have good sex in 15 minutes. I don't know, people be talking about hours. So for me, it's 15 minutes.
No, not hours.
Okay, for me, it's 15 minutes. There are 24 hours in a day, and we're awake for at least 16 of them. All right. Sex is 15 minutes. I actually have to talk to this lady, reason, compromise with her, raise children with her for the rest of the day. A big booty actually doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. Right? So what works for you is going to be your superficial wants, your superficial desires. Do what works, what makes a relationship work. That is my advice to people in general.
I would say this too. I think there's an issue too with thrills. People are so addicted to the thrill of things. They want that chase and that, always trying to some action. And sometimes the person who's good for you is a little boring.